The protocol was simple. It was drilled into us from day one of orientation. As soon as a cast member steps backstage into the Utilidor tunnels, they must remove the character head immediately. Unzip the suit, breathe, cool down. It wasn't a suggestion, it was mandatory. Because inside those fur suits, the Florida heat can spike to 120 degrees. People pass out, people die. But that day, Mickey was sitting in the corner of the locker room, shaking. My shift had ended 20 minutes ago, but Mark was still in full costume. I walked over. "Hey Mark, come on man, head off, you're gonna get heat stroke." He didn't answer. I just heard a sound coming from inside the massive smiling plastic head, a wet rattling wheeze, like lungs filled with fluid. I stepped behind him to help. My hands were shaking because the smell coming off the suit wasn't the usual funk of sweat and Lysol. It smelled like copper, like old pennies and rotting meat. I reached for the hidden zipper at the base of the neck. I ran my hand over the black fabric, down, up, down again. My blood ran cold. There was no zipper. It wasn't a manufacturing defect. The fabric had fused. Where the seam should have been, the black synthetic fur blended seamlessly into the skin of Mark's neck. The fabric had become flesh. It was pulsing, veiny, alive. I tried to pull the mask off by force. Mark screamed, but it wasn't a human scream. It sounded like an animal being skinned alive. "Stop," he shrieked, his voice distorted. "It's hungry, it's digesting. Listen to me closely. There is no magic in Orlando. That park isn't a factory for happiness. It's a feeding ground. And those lovable mascots, they aren't costumes. They are biological organisms that feed on the people inside them. If you're planning a family trip to the Magic Kingdom, you need to watch this video, because I want you to know exactly what you agreed to in the fine print of that ticket waiver regarding the ownership of your soul. When I first moved to Orlando, I was chasing the dream like everyone else. I wanted to be a cast member. Working at the Mouse House is a status symbol down here. The interview process was intense, stricter than the TSA. They didn't just check my background, they checked my medical history, my genetic lineage, even my blood type. At the time, I thought it was just for their rigorous health insurance policy. I was an idiot. They hired me into character operations as a costume technician. My post was underground, in the Utilidors, the massive tunnel system that runs beneath the Magic Kingdom. Most tourists don't know this, but the park is actually on the second floor. The ground level is a labyrinth of concrete corridors where trash is hauled, food is prepped, and characters are born. On my first day, the smell of the tunnels hit me like a physical blow. They call it magic, but it smelled like ozone, mildew, stale popcorn, and something metallic underneath it all, like a hospital morgue mixed with a carnival. My trainer was this old-timer named Pops. He'd been down there for 30 years. He had a permanent twitch in his left eye. He took me to the costume storage bay. "Rules are simple, kid," he said. 1. No photos in the tunnels, ever. 2. Never call them costumes. Call them by their names. Mickey is Mickey, Donald is Donald. And 3. He stopped, his voice dropping an octave. "If you see a suit that looks wet or sweaty on the outside, do not touch it. Call the BioClean team immediately." "You mean because of the bacteria?" I asked. Pops looked at me with dead, pitying eyes. "No, kid, not bacteria. Just don't touch it." The storage bay was massive. Rows and rows of Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, and Donald heads staring out from the darkness. But I noticed something weird immediately. The suits felt different. A normal mascot suit is foam, spandex, and plastic. But these, when I brushed against one, it felt warm. It held body heat. The fabric looked like synthetic plush, but the texture was closer to shaved skin. And there was always a sound in that room. A soft, rhythmic rustling. I thought it was the HVAC system, but it wasn't. It was the racks. Hundreds of suits, hanging on hooks, breathing. Shallow, slow breaths, but breathing. Mark was my best friend down there. He was the best Mickey in the park. High energy, perfect pantomime. When he put that head on, he became the character. Kids worshipped him. But about 3 months into the job, Mark started to change. First, it was the weight loss. Rapid, scary. His eyes sunk into his skull. His skin turned a grayish pallor. "Just tired," he'd say. "The suit is heavy. It's hot." But the weird thing was, Mark stopped wanting to take the suit off, even during lunch breaks in the cafeteria. "It's too much hassle to take off and put back on," he'd mutter. "I'll just sit in it." One day, I saw him in the break room. He had the Mickey head off, but he was still wearing the body. He wasn't eating. He was just staring at his hands. "Mark," I said. "You good?" He looked up. He had the look of a junkie going through withdrawal. "It's so hot, Stitch," he whispered. "But it's also comfortable. It feels like a hug." "A hug." "Him," he said, stroking the black fur on his chest. "He protects me. It's cold outside." That week I started noticing marks on Mark's neck, right where the suit ended. Red welts, but when I looked closer, they weren't rashes. They were circular bruises, like suction cups. like the suit was trying to latch onto him, and the smell, that coppery metallic scent around him, got stronger. I told Pops, "Mark doesn't look good. I think he's allergic to the material." Pops went pale. "Which unit is he wearing?" "The M302 series," I said. Pops cursed under his breath. "That series was supposed to be decommissioned. They're too greedy." I didn't understand. Greedy. Pops grabbed me by the shoulders. "Listen to me. You need to get Mark out of that suit. Today. Now. If full integration happens, there's no coming back." That's when I realized that the waiver clause about biological risk wasn't legalese. It was a medical diagnosis. That brings us back to the locker room. No zipper. Fabric fused to skin. Mark's panic had faded into a terrifying drug-like calm. Inside the mask, beneath Mickey's frozen, painted smile, Mark's voice sounded like he was drowning. "Don't try," he gurgled. "It's too late. I'm cutting you out," I said, grabbing the heavy-duty shears we used for repairs. I pressed the cold steel against the back of the suit, right where the fabric morphed into his skin. I snipped. Blood sprayed out. Not red blood. Black, viscous, oily blood. Mark screamed in agony, but at the same exact moment, the suit shuddered. Mickey's plastic ears flattened back against the head, like an angry cat. The chest of the costume began to heave rapidly. "You're hurting him," Mark yelled. "Don't. You're hurting us. Us." Mark turned the mask toward me. Through the mesh of the eyes, I tried to find Mark's pupils, but Mark wasn't there. In his eye sockets, I saw movement. Black, worm-like fibers were wriggling, burrowing into his tear ducts. The door burst open. It wasn't park security. It was 4 men in white hazmat suits, carrying metal cases and what looked like flamethrowers or cryo guns. "The cleaners," my mind whispered. Pops had warned me. They threw me against the lockers. The leader approached Mark. Mark was growling now, not a human sound. Mickey Mouse was cornered, baring teeth that shouldn't exist inside a mask. "Specimen 302, stabilization failed," the man said, into a radio. "Host rejection. Biomass has gone aggressive." Host. Mark was an employee, a human being. To them, he was just a host. The man aimed his device at Mark. He pulled the trigger. A blast of supercooled gas hit the suit. Mark and the thing he was wearing froze instantly. The scream died in his throat. They didn't put him on a stretcher. They shoved him into a large, airtight biohazard barrel. The barrel had a logo on it, not the Disney castle. Bioimagineering Labs. As they left, one of the cleaners stopped and looked at me. His voice was robotic through the gas mask. "You saw nothing. Your friend transferred to Disneyland, California. Do you understand?" I nodded, paralyzed with terror. I looked at the floor where the black blood from Mark, or the suit, had pooled. The blood was moving. It was slithering into the grout between the tiles, trying to hide. I couldn't go home that night. I hid in the tunnels. I needed answers. Where did they take Mark? What were those things? I broke into Pops's office. I found old blueprints of the park. The Utilidors are on level -1, but on the blueprints, hidden under a section labeled Waste Management, there was a freight elevator shaft that went down to level -4. Stamped next to it in red ink, Organic Archive. I took the cargo elevator. I swiped my ID. It flashed, unauthorized, but I used the master key I swiped from Pops's desk. It overrode the lock. The elevator descended. Level -2. Level -3. The air changed. The smell of mildew vanished, replaced by a hot, humid greenhouse atmosphere. And a sound. A heartbeat. Thump, thump. The doors opened on level -4. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a cave. The walls weren't concrete. They were lined with a biological resin, like the inside of a stomach. And they were everywhere. The costumes. But they weren't on racks. They were hanging from meat hooks on the ceiling. Thousands of them. Mickeys, Donalds, princess dresses, massive Baloo suits. But these weren't finished products. They were growing. Inside translucent, gelatinous cocoons, half-formed suits were gestating. They were being grown like skin grafts. The synthetic fur was sprouting from raw, veiny meat underneath. And worse, some of the cocoons had nutrition inside them. Human-shaped nutrition. I walked up to a tank. Inside, a Winnie the Pooh suit was floating in amber liquid. The suit was translucent. Inside the stomach of the bear, something was being digested, a pile of bones. And resting on top of the pile was a shiny plastic name tag. Sarah, a girl who had gone missing 2 years ago. The company said she quit for family reasons. The truth hit me like a train. Disney doesn't manufacture costumes. Disney farms a life form. These suits are genetically engineered parasites, symbiotic organisms. They need a human, not just to move, to feed, to regulate their body temperature. That's why the hiring process is so strict. That's why they need our blood type. They aren't looking for actors. They are looking for compatible donors. At the far end of the hall, I saw a massive blast door, labeled Prototype Model M. The sound coming from behind it. It wasn't the high-pitched, cheerful voice of the mouse you see on TV. It was a deep, guttural, ancient voice. "Bring more meat." You know the urban legend about Walt being cryogenically frozen? Maybe he wasn't frozen. Maybe he was the first host, the first integration inside Model M. And now he sits on his throne beneath the park, feeding his kingdom. An alarm blared. They knew I was there. I don't know how I made it out.
pure adrenaline. I climbed up a trash chute, dragged myself through slime and garbage, and dumped myself out into the swamp on the edge of the property. I was covered in that organic fluid. I didn't go home. I didn't pack a bag. I hopped a Greyhound bus and didn't stop until I crossed the state line into Mexico. A week later, I saw it on the news. Gas leak at Magic Kingdom. The Utilidors were closed for a week for maintenance. I don't know what they told Mark's family. Probably gave them a massive settlement and an NDA that would silence them for 3 generations. I can't watch Disney movies anymore. When I see those characters, when I hear those happy songs, all I see are the cocoons on level 4. All I hear is Mark's final words, "You're hurting us." Next time you take your kids to Disneyland, when that giant Mickey Mouse walks up to give you a hug, look at his hands. Look at where the glove meets the wrist. If you don't see a seam, if you feel a pulse thumping beneath the fabric, and if the eyes inside the mask are moving, tracking you, grab your kid and run. Because inside that suit, there isn't a college student working a summer job. That suit is empty, and it is starving. Remember, the happiest place on earth is just a cover for the world's most efficient slaughterhouse.